So our topic is advanced production planning tools in S/4HANA. So people who doesn't belong to PP. So basically, what is production planning? Production planning is as simple as that. What we try to do in production planning, we try to make sure that during the production, we require a lot of materials. And let me know that the name is confusing, okay? Production planning means that we only want to plan for production. But in this module, actually, we not only plan for production, we plan for multiple things, okay? So the name is a little confusing. So it's basically the manufacturing and planning. And to do the planning, what is the planning? In planning, we want to make sure that we need some material to produce something. Let's say we need a raw material. So we want to make sure that the raw material should be available when we want to do the production. And it is also linked to the sales when we want to sell something to the customer. That material we need to produce, and to produce we need raw materials. So in the supply chain, we have a raw materials, we have a semi-finished goods, we have a finished goods which need to be delivered to the customer. Customer has a demand, and then based on that, we need to do the planning and make sure that all the raw materials are available on right time, in right quantity, at right place, so that we can do the production and we can produce the right amount of quantity at right place at right time, so that we can fulfill all the customer demand. Customer demand, not only the sales order which we have got, but also the forecasted demand. So this PP1 would be having a combination of all of these things. We will be talking about forecasting for the sales. We'll be talking about how to do the production planning, how to make sure that we have a correct planned orders in correct quantities. We'll be talking about MRP, material requirement plannings, where basically the engine runs and they calculate that how much quantity we need to buy, how much quantity we need to produce, at what date, at what time we need to do the production, or at what date, at what time we need to do the buying. This all is planning, okay? I have explained in very high level. It will be looking very simple to you, but when you jump into it, it becomes complex. That's the reason there are the multiple tools there, and that's the reason we came here together to discuss what kind of function, features, and tools would be here. Okay, so now let's go ahead into it. So I would be giving you a first overview, then I would be handing it over to Pankaj, and Pankaj would be going a little bit more detail. We don't expect much more details because this topics which we are covering here is almost 15 to 20 hours of part of our training. Okay, so you all guys know we have a ECC, right? Can you guys let me know in the chat window what are the planning tools which you use, especially the people belongs from PP? Over the chat window, what are the planning tools we use in PP? Over the chat window. Yeah, I'm getting responses. That's great. APO, MRP run, classic MRP, S&OP, or MPS, MRP, IBP. Okay, all the GAN coming here, all the terminology coming here. SNP, MPS, great guys. Thank you. Thank you for the GAN. Let me make it more GANful. Okay, so basically in ECC, we will be having a tools. One of the basic tool is MRP. People does not belong from the PP. MRP is material requirement planning, which makes sure that whatever the materials you require, it's available in right time, right quantity, right place. Okay, right material, right time, right quantity at right place, it is available. That is ensured by a MRP engine. That is the first tool, MRP, material requirement planning, which we use. Then we also use some other things. We use LTP. What is LTP? Long-term planning. Then the another terminology which we also use is S&OP. Sorry, my hand touched somewhere, so my video got off. S&OP. Sales and operations planning. Right? We have MRP, we have LTP, we have sales and operation planning. We also use sometime capacity leveling. Okay, and then we'll be also using MPS, master product scheduling also will be using. So at high level, we have MRP, we have LTP, we have sales and operation planning, we have a capacity leveling, These are the things which is available in ECC. MRP does what MRP does. It helps you to create your planned orders and purchase requisitions. Okay. Then we also have LTP. LTP, I'm giving a very high level overview to you guys. Okay. We have multiple peoples in this, so we'll not go into much detail, but a very high level. LTP is long-term planning. Pankaj would be talking in a little bit more detail of LTP, where basically we plan for a full horizon. Let's say the 12 months horizon we'll be doing planning. And then we'll checking that for that at high level, whether my capacities are matching or not, whether the demand which I'm getting it and the production I need to do, whether I have that much of capacity in my plants or not. And whatever the requirement is going to the vendor can also show their commitment, whether they would be able to supply that materials or not. So that kind of high level was for the longer horizon check we do in LTP, long-term planning. Then we have a S&OP, sales and operations planning. Now, this is a very confusing terminology. The people who work in the business, S&OP means each and everything. People works in the operations. Here, S&OP is more related to your forecastings. Okay, it is more related to your sales forecasting. Now, you want to produce or you want to sell. Okay, we don't wait for the production or to buy the material so that we get the orders. We would be we will not be only depending on the customers. We do our own forecasting based on our previous sales history. We would be doing our own forecastings. Okay, and we will also consider that what is the current demand. Based on that, we do the sales forecasting, and based on this sales forecasting, we try to identify that how much we need to produce, how much we need to buy. So that sales forecasting, there are a lot of forecasting models are there, which helps to generate that how much you need to produce, and which helps to generate your first level for your demand planning or for your demand management, which is called purchase requisitions or planned independent requirements. So your planned independent requirements come from the sales and operations planning. Okay. And then later on, when you do when the MRP run happens, you all know that MRP do the unconstrained planning, right? It doesn't consider whether the capacity would be able to meet or not. It will just say that you need to produce on that date, whether the capacity is there or not. On the second level, we'll be doing a capacity leveling. You can also do the capacity leveling. It's a lot of manual tools are there by which we will be coming to know that the particular production order which has been given by the system, whether we can do whether it is matching with the capacities or not, whether we'll be able to do that production or not. And we have multiple resources, we have multiple machines and lines, right? So we distribute our load between the machines and lines in the capacity level. So those are the ECC tools. Now, what is there in SAP S/4HANA? Let's talk about. A lot of people has already spoke about it. Let me highlight it again. Now, what is there in S/4HANA? So when we talk about SAP S/4HANA, we have now Mrp Lite. We'll talk about a little bit detail of these tools. I'm giving you overview. We have Mrp Lite. What else we have? We have Ddmrp. What is the full form of Ddmrp? It's a demand-driven material requirement planning. Demand-driven material requirement planning, Ddmrp. Then, sorry, okay. Then the third thing we have Predictive Mrp. Okay, Predictive Mrp is also there. So we have Mrp Live extra, we have a Ddmrp extra, we have a Predictive Mrp, and the four things which we have, we also have embedded PPDS. Okay, so when we go through the trainings, basically a lot of people know only about Mrp. Okay, they don't know about the other tools. Okay, so when we go into our training sessions, first I explain that what are the things which Mrp cannot do. Okay, there's a lot of things which Mrp cannot do. A lot of shortcomings are there. That's why we need advanced tools and advanced planning. It does not mean that with S/4HANA Also, you would be able to do all of the things. All of the complex production planning scenarios will meet by S4HANA. That is also not mandatory. There will be a lot of scenarios which even SAP S4HANA will also not be able to meet. Okay. For that, we have another thing. We have a IBP. Now in S4HANA, so this MRP, which is with ECC MRP, we call it as a classic MRP. S4HANA would be having a classic MRP also and MRP Live also. There would be two features would be available. MRP Live would be running on the special algorithms which has been rewritten on the HANA database. So the performance and the speed would be very much higher in MRP Live. The basic disadvantage for the MRP was that we only do once in a day. With MRP Live, we're giving access to the people because it's running on HANA database, which is our in-memory database. So we would be able to run multiple times. We will be able to run. And then a lot of functionalities we'll talk about a little bit more later on. A lot of functionalities which was not there in MRP would be available in MRP Live. Okay, MD01, MD02, MD03. If you know the MRP, now we have MD01N, where basically we will be able to handle with the single transaction multiple things which we are not able to handle with MRP. And a lot of Fiori applications has been added that would be there in MRP Live. Outcome would be same. What MRP does, MRP Live would also be doing the same thing. Okay, outcome would be the same, but it would be having additional features and it would be having a very high performance. That would be there with MRP Live. Then we have a Ddmrp. Ddmrp is a new type of MRP. You can say it MRP type. Let's say we have a PD, we have a VB. It's a D1. It's basically a modified version of reorder-based planning, where basically we will be combining the both PD planning and VB reorder-based planning. We'll be combining both and we'll be doing Ddmrp. Ddmrp is more, if you have known that the pull strategies and the push strategies, it's actually the mix of both, but oriented towards more into the pull part of it. Okay, it's making your reorder-based planning more pull oriented. Okay, and it will also be managing some stocks and buffers, because it manages some stocks and buffers at the multiple places. It would also be push oriented. So it's a combination of pull strategy and push strategy in the planning. So Ddmrp is also there. Then we have a predictive MRP. So earlier we were having a long-term planning. Now the long-term planning would be replaced by the predictive MRP, where basically the earlier capacity level things we will be able to do in the predictive MRP. Pankaj would be talking more about that. Okay. So if I will draw some lines here, your MRP, classic MRP is going into MRP Live. LTP is going into predictive MRP. Now the MRP is having additional features where the Ddmrp is also there. Now this capacity leveling would also be there in S4HANA. Okay. But in ECC, we have a constraint that the capacity planning we cannot do. We can do the capacity leveling, but the planning we cannot do. So the capacity planning can be done through, earlier it was done through APO. Okay, so I'm writing here now another tool, ECC S4HANA APO IBP. I will write all the four and we'll see that which function and feature would be fitting in which area, and then I will give it to Pankaj to explain more detail of some part of the S4HANA part. Now another part I'm writing it here. And the another part is APO. Now, earlier what was there, because ECC was having a limited planning features, so we have advanced planning and optimization. So some of the things was done through APO. Okay, what are the things which has been done through APO? Especially when your MR, you want to do a constraint planning. So what is a constraint planning? Let's say I'm running a machine and that machine can produce 10,000 items in a day. Now, if I have an order of 15,000 items in a day, which I cannot produce on the same machine, but I have another machine, so my load need to be distributed, right? So those kind of constraint planning, SAP cannot do. It cannot push it to the another machine, or it cannot bring it forward or push it ahead the orders, so that it say that on the particular point, the capacity is overshooting, so I should not plan two planned orders there, right? So those kind of advanced planning, MRP cannot do. Okay, so this capacity leveling, if you want to change into the capacity planning, it is done in the APO, production planning and detailed scheduling. So PPDS is one of the module in APO. It's not all about APO, it's just one of the module in APO. In our training, we'll be giving an overview of PPDS because PPDS itself is a 30 to 35 hours of separate training. We have a separate PPDS consultants. So capacity planning would be done in the PPDS in APO. If you need to plan constraint-based planning, if you want to do, we do in the APO PPDS. Okay. Now this thing is moving now. Okay. Now this capacity planning and PPDS would not be available in APO, and now it is moving to S/4HANA as an embedded PPDS. So that same brick would be removed from APO and would be put it into the S/4HANA as embedded PPDS. Even APO itself will sunset by 2030. So APO will sunset. So what would be replacing the APO? S/4HANA plus another tool they are bringing up, IBP. S/4HANA plus IBP would be combining it together and covering all the questions on the question and answer window if you have any questions so far. So the combination of these two would be giving you the full planning scenarios. All the planning would be covered there. So capacity planning would done in the PPDS. What are the another thing which has been done in APO? Can anyone tell me what are the another modules? What other things we do in APO? Over the chat window. What are the other things which we do in the apart SNC? Okay. What else? What are the another modules are there in APO? Over the chat window. I received some of the answers. Let them come. GATP. Okay. DP. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. You guys are correct. So we have here DP. Apart from the PPDS, we have a demand planning, which is your DP. Then we have a supply network planning, which is your SNP. Then we also have your GATP, global available to promise. Now these additional function and features are available here because the ECC was not able to fulfill. Now let's see here in this picture, what are the things APO is going to sunset by 2030? What are the ECC things would be coming from APO and now it is switching to S/4HANA. So S&OP already in S/4HANA, they said that it would be non-supporting functionality, although it is available in SAP S/4HANA, it's available, but it has been considered as outgoing functionality, which SAP would not be supporting in future. S&OP, where the sales forecast has happened, even in ECC itself, if some people want to adopt to the forecasting models and the advanced forecasting models, SAP was recommending that rather than using S&OP, you go and use DP module of APO because that is more advanced and all functionalities, features, or the algorithms which is required by a client is available here in DP. Okay. So now this demand planning as APO is going to start. First, they move from S&OP to DP here, and now they would be moving. Now I'm writing it another thing here is my IBP. The IBP is now another tool. Okay. IBP also have a demand planning tool. IBP have now multiple features. It has a demand planning. It has a S&OP is also there. Demand planning forecasting is separate. S&OP is separate. And then it also has a module related to inventory response. And it also has a supply and response. Then it also has some kind of control tower. These are the modules in IBP. I will not go into the detail of IBP. I'm not an IBP expert, but we have a further planned sessions in the next months, where basically one things would be explained in 30 to 45-minute sessions for IBP. Okay, so now this demand planning would go now from here to here, which means that if you need to use the advanced demand planning, S&OP is available in S4HANA, but it will be obsoleted. So the demand planning need to be used from the IBP. What else is there? LTP is going as a predictive MRP. It would be available in the S4HANA as a predictive MRP. LTP is also available and predictive MRP is also available. Both are available in S4HANA. S&OP we have discussed. Capacity leveling we have discussed. Okay. Then another thing is supply network planning here. You can see here the supply network planning. Supply network planning is basically a kind of a cross-plant planning situations which MRP cannot handle. Okay, MRP cannot handle, MRP cannot identify. It doesn't have a heuristic runs that complex algorithms, which is required, where basically you need to decide if the two plants can supply to the third plant. If you have a plant A here and plant B here, and they both can supply to my distribution center, and my demand come here. Now this demand, whether it need to be distributed to A, it need to be distributed to B. If you say that quota arrangement, MRP can handle. If you say that intelligently, what is the most cost of effective for me, go for that. If you have that kind of requirement, then MRP or ECC cannot handle. It was handled through the, this is one of the scenario. It can handle multiple different scenarios, but this is one of the scenario. Then supply network planning can handle it. Now this S&P supply network planning would be replaced by this supply and response. Okay. It would be replaced by the supply and response in IBP. Okay. Earlier we were doing it through APO, and now it will be going as a supply and response. Now this GATP now would be going is a global available to promise. GATP is a module where basically when the sales order comes in, and then we check that whether do we have availability, or based on the different plants or based on the different situations, we identify that by when we can promise to customer that we will be able to deliver that product on a particular date. Okay, so we have a functionality in ECC for that. It is called, this would not be, sorry for that. This would not be part of our training program. We cover in the SD training. We have availability check. Check here. And now it would be available here as AATP, Advanced Available to Promise. Okay. So basically your GATP, if you will see the GATP is going to be replaced in future by AATP. Not now. GATP has a lot of function and features. AATP does not have all the function features, but in advance, GATP is going to replace by AATP. So what do you see here? A lot of things from ECC come to S4HANA. Then we have additional things like Predictive Mrp, Ddmrp, and then APO related stuff comes to the S4HANA, AATP come up, embedded PPDS come up, and some things has been moved to the IBP. Okay, inventory part, your Ddmrp would also be available here. Your S&OP would also be having functions related to MRP that would also be available here. Control tower would be answering your analytical. And the dashboards, planning dashboards, and those all things would be answered through the control tower. So that would be the full tools which is available for planning, and that is the distribution between the tools. Between ECC, S4HANA, APO, and IBP. It's a full comparison between all the 4 tools. Future is S4HANA plus IBP. Okay, APO will go to sunset. So now the people are moving from ECC to S4HANA. Slowly, they are planning to move from APO to IBP and from APO to S4HANA. That is the current strategy. The movement from APO to IBP and APO to S4HANA is slow because the target date is 2030. And IBP is also, people does not consider IBP as a stable tool for demand planning. Whatever the information I have is quite stable, but the inventory, supply and response, control tower are very new modules which need to be get stable before people are jumping into it. Okay, so a lot of clients are waiting that these planning tools get stable in IBP in next 2 to 3 years, and then they would be adopting. Although the adoption has already started, there is a huge demand for IBP also. I will be taking a pause here with this information. Okay, I have few questions I will be answering at the last. Okay, let me take a few questions which is there in the question and answers, and then I will give it to Pankaj, and Pankaj would be explaining a little bit more detail of what is predictive MRP, and then we'll go into Ddmrp and Mrp Lite, the key function features of S4HANA. Okay, I have only the few questions. Let me check. I think it's on the chat. What actually PP covers in ERP? So I would say when you say ERP, I'm considering S4HANA is my ERP. Okay. What does the PP covers in ERP is what does the PP covers in S4HANA? So Mrp Lite, the Mrp capabilities has been covered. S&OP is available, but it's an obsoleted component, which means that your forecasting, your sales forecasting, it would not be covering in S4HANA, right? Mrp it would be covering. It would be calculating your what you need to produce, at what time you need to produce, how much you need to procure. That level of planning would be available. So advanced planning with the Ddmrp would be available. You would be able to do the long-term plannings. You would be able to do the capacity planning, which is on the advanced level. So the predictive MRP is not the actual run, but it's a simulations runs. So the simulations runs you will be able to do, you will be able to check that for the next 1 year, the kind of demand we have, whether the capacities are available or not, or if there is any changes is required in the plan. That kind of things also you will be able to do. Okay, with the predictive MRP. Then embedded PPDS, the detailed production planning and detailed scheduling, where you can plan based on the capacity constraint, you can plan your production order, and you can decide that on what hour, what minute the production order need to start. Exact that kind of planning also would be covered, would be done under the S4HANA, but it does not cover exactly in the PP module. PPDS still we consider as a separate module. PP consultants are upgrading themselves to the PPDS and to the IBP. Okay, and your global ATP functionalities would also be covered in the S4HANA. Against not in part of the PP, but it would be part of the SD.